This is Money Moves on VSiN, the sports betting network.
Second hour, Money Moves, VSiN, the Sports Betting Network, Sirius XM Channel 158. He's Jonathan Von Tobel. I'm Stormy Buonantony. Still to come this hour, we've got best bets on the two remaining knockout games of the World Cup. JVT is also going to break down the Commissioner's Cup and the WNBA.
Big injury.
Yes, exactly, for the Las Vegas Aces. We'll get into that in a moment. But real quickly, we do have a tweet I needed to read you.
We have to give context to this first. So Norway wins. They move on against Ivory Coast 2-1. In celebration of the goal from Erling Haaland, there was a group of men out here who ripped their shirts off and were chest bumping and getting very excited.
Standing on tables.
Yeah, because they're Norway fans.
And Deepak48 tweeted at us and said, if JVT doesn't push his nipples against the glass to the fans of Norway at the sportsbook, I'll be extremely disappointed. He's been working towards this for a year. This is where the workouts pay off.
It's only been 6 months, so let's wait until the full year, and then we'll find a moment, I'm sure.
This was not the way I initially planned on entering hour two, as we do have Wimbledon going on and Serena Williams on center court. Very excited.
Luckily, we don't have a first-time guest with us either.
Yeah, very excited to welcome Mitch Michals to the program for the first time, tennis analyst, host of the Inside In Tennis podcast as well. I'm so sorry that that's your first interaction with us. How are you today?
I'm doing well. I guess I'm sorry there's no Norwegian tennis players still left in the draw. We could have some more fun that way, but I'm pretty happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Right, get some more rows out there at the All England Club. Something tells me that wouldn't go over very well at that venue. That said, I would like to start with Serena, as it's the first time that she's back in singles competition since 2022. I know she didn't officially retire, but that's what it felt like for all of us. And a pretty solid first match here, at least getting underway recently against Maya Joint. What have you thought?
I think she's looked a lot better than most people, myself, would have thought. She's moving pretty well. I think it's pretty ridiculous that she's coming back after 4 years right to Wimbledon. Like, it's insane even for her standards to have the gall to do this, but she's backing it up. And I think this bodes well for, depending on if she wins this match, I think the section is pretty manageable. But even if not, she's not getting completely outclassed. And that was the worry for a lot of people, Serena fans and tennis fans. She looks like she belongs. And at her age, with nothing less to prove, I think it's just a blessing for tennis to have her in. So we'll see how she does today and maybe beyond.
So I have a general handicapping question for you, Mitch, as you look at these matchups, because in the early goings of these tennis tournaments, you get really big favorites. And generally, bettors are going to shy away from minus 600s. We got some minus 10,000s on the board. So how do you bet some of these first-round matchups when you have such heavy favorites that are going early on?
I'm always looking at the set props for a lot of the underdogs, what the value is on them to win a set, especially men's matches, best of 5. Now that there's only 4 tournaments, that's the best opportunity, I think, to find value. I'm kind of maybe on an island. I don't really like game spreads too much in major matches because I think there's a lot of, we'll say, energy conservation, not so much tanking, but I think the spreads can be a little misleading. But upsets happen across the board, and I think you're very, very likely to find a big minus 5, minus 600 favorite loose day to day almost. And I think that going favorites has never really been my jam in this regard. I think you can find good value in the over in like first sets, for example. Serena and Maya Joint look like they're going to crush that number as well. I think there's a lot of tightness in terms of these major matches because the stakes are so high, and at the first set specifically, there's a lot of feeling out. So that'd be the angle I would play.
Well, one of your biggest favorites coming out tomorrow morning, Aryna Sabalenka, minus 930 favorites in that round against McCartney Kessler. But in terms of the odds at large for the tournament, plus 320 favorite to win it for the first time in her career. She's reached the semis 3 times, plus 110 to get to that point. Could this be the year that she finally gets over the hump? How do you view her in terms of the bracket getting out there at Wimbledon?
It should be the year. It should have been last year and probably the year before that. I think she's clearly the best player in the world, the most consistent. But something crazy that makes Wimbledon so exciting is that she has this issue with getting over the hump in terms of finishing matches. Roland Garros was a disaster for her. I think she would admit that, how she blew that lead against Schneider. But it's happened a couple times since then where she's been a big favorite, had a lead, and then not gotten it done. I think she's a surefire bet to get to at least the semifinals. But after that, it's pretty hairy because there's something mental going on with her when the moment gets to the very end. And, I think it's going to be fun to watch. But there's no more consistent player in the world than Aryna Sabalenka.
At this point for the men, obviously Jannik Sinner is a odds-on favorite at minus 150. Is there anywhere else you can look on this futures board right now to upend Sinner in a tournament like this?
We can't bet on the sun because that'd be my favorite bet to make against Jannik Sinner. But, he's got that same issue where it's, he's got an Achilles heel, and it's when the weather gets hot and the matches get long. Maybe it's Novak Djokovic. It's crazy. He's still the number 2 favorite. I think his path to the semis looks pretty manageable as well. I think Tommy Paul, if you get to that point where it's a Tommy Paul, the American taking on Sinner in the quarters, there might be some value there because I like what Paul can do on grass. But I think it's fair that this is Sinner's tournament to lose because the conditions suit him, and his number 1 rival, Carlos Alcaraz, isn't in the event. So I wasn't too worried that he went 5 sets the other day. I know there's not a lot of value in taking him at this point, but I think you just got to see what the conditions are like, see how hot it gets, and see if his body holds up.
Yeah, odds on -150 to win it all. But I'm glad you brought up that opening match because I was curious your thoughts on the way that Sinner and Novak Djokovic both had, not gimmies that most would have thought that they would be early on. What did you think of those performances?
They weren't sharp, but I think that's part, Stormy, of the rust factor when you have players that just don't play, no tune-ups for either Sinner or Novak, and I think that's going to happen. The best players in the world, it's a thin line, especially best of 5, that you can work your way into a draw. You got to be careful, obviously. But I think we've seen from Novak especially, he gets better as these tournaments go on. And I think for Sinner, it'll be much of the same. I just think he didn't look sharp at first. He did have 31 aces yesterday. So if you take a positive away, he was serving well. But yeah, it wasn't his best, and I think they would both admit that, and I do expect them both to get better. But looking at that board, I think the value is Taylor Fritz at 13-1. He's on the other side of the draw. He's made a deep run here, and for the first time all year, really, he looks healthy.
As we look to tomorrow, and obviously we have a bunch of matches here, if we focus just on the men, were there any matches and bets within those matches that stuck out to you for tomorrow on the men's side?
On the men's side tomorrow, I was looking at a couple different ones. I actually think Felix is a safe play tomorrow. I think he's going to handle business. That might be an under or a straight sets win that I would look at. Fritz is much of the same way, but I think it's going to be. I'll put it this way: I think Wimbledon is always prone for some surprises early, but I do think that the cream rises relatively by rounds 4 and beyond. If you look at the trajectory of what we've seen quarterfinal, semifinal on, it's been a lot of the top seeds that have handled business. So I would say get your upset bets in early because historically speaking, that doesn't necessarily happen as we get to the second week.
I'm going to be boring and ask you the same question, though, going on the women's side. If there is a match or two that caught your attention, whether it's a bet or even just a match you're excited about.
Yeah, well, I'll say one thing. Mira Andreeva, Barbora Krejcikova is an interesting one. You have the reigning Roland Garros champ versus a 2-time champion, a Wimbledon champ. I think that could be a sizable test there. As far as the Americans go, I've always got my eyes on them. Coco Gauff, I like her path, but she's another one that's had some hiccups, so you got to keep an eye on her to see if it's straightforward. I'm really looking at tomorrow's match, Iva Jovic versus Tatiana Maria. Maria has been doing well on grass, and the young American Jovic, I think, is good, but doesn't have the experience. That could be too close for comfort. But yeah, I've just got my eyes on all these American women and seeing who can rise up because I think we could have several in the Final Four.
With Coco Gauff in general, I don't want to say it's not her favorite surface, but it's probably one that she's performed the worst on. Does that give you any concern with her and how far she can go?
Yeah, and you're correct. It is her least favorable, least desirable surface. I think it's a weird spot for women's tennis because I think this is her most vulnerable area, but all the top contenders have some issues going on right now. Elena Rybakina isn't playing the best. Mira Andreeva, how do you follow up your first slam? Iga looks shaky, barely surviving Taylor Townsend today. So I think, yes, you're right, Stormy, but I also think that this is an opportunity for her given the draw. My favorite in this graphic, in this board right now is Pegula. I think this could be her time to win her first major. I think the opportunity is there. She's played well on grass, but Coco's still very lively because she fights to the bitter end, and she's the best competitor the WTA has.
Before I get you out of here, can you explain to a novice like me the effects of grass and the difference in a grass tournament here that we're going to be watching at Wimbledon?
Okay, I'll try my best, Jonathan. I'll do my best here. But the biggest thing is the points are shorter. It's going to be a lot quicker. You don't have time to load up your shots. You want to finish attacking, get to the net. The players that get to the net, which is kind of a lost art, are going to do the best. But oddly enough, and I lean on the pros that I get to talk to on this, it's a little harder on your joints than clay. You're not sliding. You're a little making more rigid movements. So I do think that there could be some players towards the end of the tournament that are feeling the effects of playing on grass. But I love it. Wimbledon's the best for me because of the acoustics, the artistic view, but also the points of the action is very thorough. You're not going to have a lot of 40, 50 ball rallies. We're just going to get right to the point and figure out who the best is.
Mitch, thank you so much for the breakdown. Enjoy all of the matches. Thank you for this.
I really appreciate it, Jonathan, Stormy. Thanks for having me. Hope to chat again soon. Good luck with everything. And I'll see what you guys retweet as well, because that's obviously something to follow, too.
Yes, right. Thank you. We will be bugging you again. Mitch Michals, everybody. Again, make sure you check out the Inside In Tennis podcast as well. To put some numbers for our radio audience, Jessica Pegula, 10-1 on the odds board to win Wimbledon this year. Coco Gauff, around 16-1.
Yeah, I got to get some of these futures in. I'll throw them in. Got a tail.
I think I'm going to throw, since you can get still plus money, plus 110, plus 115 on Sabalenka just to make the semis. I think that might be something I end up adding to the account. Fortunately, we're about 30 seconds out from a commercial break, so that'll give me just the amount of time to put it in.
See, fortunately for me, I don't have to leave the show, so I can just do this right now.
You're supposed to still listen to me, engage.
I'm listening. I'm engaging.
No, I don't know if I ever get eye contact with you. Ever since we added this little television screen down here, now I don't know if I want it. Now this is approaching creepy territory.
Continue.
Use your words.
I'm just making sure that I give you all the
engaging isn't just staring at someone. On that note, we got to step aside.
First.
We got to step aside. When we come back, we're going to dive into the Commissioner's Cup today. And the World Cup obviously rolls on as well. And I know I've got plays. Does JVT? We'll tell you what when we return.
So you're listening to this podcast because you want an edge. But what if I told you you're only halfway there? You've got the mindset. Now it's time to get the toolkit to match. Here's the thing. Pro bettors spend thousands on data and tools, but what they don't want you to know is you can get the same edge for a fraction of the cost with VSiN Pro. With VSiN Pro, you get access to expert picks, public betting data, prop projections, powerful tools, analytics, and more. Tap the link in the description and see why thousands of bettors are already using VSiN Pro to cash more bets.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Since 2022, the Las Vegas Aces and New York Liberty have won all 4 WNBA championships, and they're going head-to-head in the Commissioner's Cup coming up tonight. The Aces, a 6.5-point dog. Why, you ask? Because the leader in the clubhouse for MVP once again this year, A'ja Wilson, is going to be unavailable. I'm getting there. How you feel about it tonight?
Interest, consider it peaked, because it is a fun game. You mentioned the history that they have between each other when you're talking about the actual championships, I should say. So we have this a lot of mileage in this rivalry so far to this point. We also just watched them play last week, and the Liberty came out here to Las Vegas and kind of wiped the floor with them for the most part. And now you're going to do it without your best player. But there is an interesting wrinkle to this for Las Vegas, which is as you lose one, another returns. Kennedy Carter, who is one of the big offseason acquisition for him, has not been really available. We'll get to the ramifications of that in one market coming up here in a little bit. But played against the Sky and now is not on the injury report for today. So it's a pretty nice piece to have out there coming off the bench to help you out if that's going to be the case. But I am curious, when they played last time, Stormy, and watching it, the observations for me were that the size of the New York Liberty really bothered Las Vegas. I mean, they really kind of pounded them inside. Offensive glass was a really big problem for them in that game for the most part for Las Vegas, and especially the opportunities coming off of the offensive rebounds that they were getting were particularly great for them. And some of the big pieces that they have, including, I think it's a Hanju. She only played 13 minutes, but she had 12 points. She grabbed a couple of rebounds as well, and she, for those who don't know, is 6'11", 203. She's pretty big and really bothered them and might be forced into a little bit more action as well, considering Satu Sabali's not going to play again here today due to the concussion. So with all that being said, and without A'ja Wilson, I do kind of believe that this is going to be one where you're looking in that direction. You're also maybe asking Kennedy Carter to do a little bit more. Just, hey, you have a game under your belt. You're kind of back from what is being reported as an illness. rumblings out here, kind of maybe that it's not entirely an illness and just maybe something behind the scenes. Who knows? But either way, if she got a game under her belt, and the beginning of the year, if you look at Carter's numbers, like she was playing really well. So maybe you can find that spark again and get some help from your backcourt, but lean a little bit toward the Liberty. We've talked a lot about these revenge spots. They've played really well, so maybe the Aces can stay inside of that, but I'd be more prone to look in that direction if A'ja Wilson was available. And without him, really backcourt oriented, not a ton of size, and I think that might be a bothersome an issue for the Aces here.
Unfortunate in a spotlight game like this not to have your biggest star, but it is worth noting, at least for A'ja Wilson, this isn't expected to be anything long-term. We're still waiting for more information on it, but just hurt the right ankle, lower leg in that game against the Sky on Sunday. So hopefully she is back sooner. And worth noting as well, this is similar to the NBA Cup, right? They're getting paid for this. So $500,000 prize pool on the line for this. They'll donate some money to charity as a part of it as well. To go down the Kennedy Carter route, though, while I mentioned A'ja Wilson in the MVP conversation, as she's an odds-on favorite there, Kennedy Carter is a pretty short number as well in another futures market.
Yeah, so I was just kind of curious, like looking around, and obviously since they play today, so it's timely and topical. Sixth player of the year in the WNBA. So over at FanDuel, that's where these numbers are. Janelle Solano plays for the Golden State Valkyries, your favorite, at plus 110. Then you get Kennedy Carter at plus 165. Then Ray Burrell plays for the Sparks at plus 650. Then you get deep into the double digits. Sophie Cunningham for Indiana, 18-1. Some would argue face of the Fever. Anissa Morrow for the Connecticut Sun at 25-1. And then Paulina Steer for the New York Liberty at 40-1. So the reason why I want to bring this up is, as I mentioned, Kennedy Carter has not been playing. The Aces have played 19 games. She's missed 8 of those games. So it's a pretty good chunk of the games that they have played that she's not been available. And if you look at her last 5 games, Stormy, she's averaging 8.8 points, 0.8 rebounds, 0.4 assists on 44% shooting from the floor. So she had a really good, strong first 4 or 5 games. But in the other 5, with her inconsistent availability, she has not played well at all. So if you look at this from a season-long standpoint, if you just filter out the numbers, she's like the second-best sixth player of the year, or the second-best sixth player right now. So I can understand if you just looked at it on the surface and said, oh, yeah, she's averaging like 14 points. She should be up there. But her play has declined, and her availability has declined in a really big way. So it made me think, like, don't we want to look somewhere else? Salon, the favorite at plus 110, is averaging 12.5 points, 4.2 rebounds, 1.2 assists. She's shooting 40% from the floor, 37% from 3. Ray Burrell is averaging, we'll round up 11.9 to 12. So 12, 2, and 2 on 42% shooting, 34% from beyond the arc. And I think the interesting one, only because of name value, is Sophie Cunningham. She's averaging 10 points, 2 rebounds, and 1 assist, rounding down there. But her shooting numbers are way better than the other people in front of her. 48.9% from the floor, 41% from 3. And it just makes me think, if Carter is going to continue to be in and out of the lineup, maybe unavailable, what if this play decline in terms of her efficiency, scoring, and everything else is true, and that's really what she's going to be? At plus 165, the way she's getting priced, this has to be a mispriced market, and there's got to be somewhere else you can look. And I don't want to be low-hanging fruit because I'm just a knuckle-dragger that just walked into the W this year. But Cunningham seems tempting at 18-1, given the name value and the shooting numbers that she's got next to her. But my whole premise here is just that I feel like this is a mispriced market with the way that Carter's being priced in her recent play.
Well, I'd say, yeah, the bang for your buck, though, on Sophie Cunningham, definitely at 18-1. But also, she's getting some highlight-worthy moments lately. Like when they're doing a lot of these game recaps for the Fever, she's, scoring how many points in the last couple minutes to win them games, hitting important threes. That is a layer that plays into it as well as just the counting stats. So I don't hate it. And as we're talking about the W, we know we've got Major League Baseball in full swing as well. Wimbledon on our televisions, the World Cup, the sports calendar never stops. And the Sharp Plays is covering it all, winning for 15 straight years, all of it documented. They've got logs posted publicly at sharpplays.com as well. And we know transparency can be tough in any industry, but especially this one. When the Sharp Plays move, the sports books are taking notice. They've also got advanced AI, trusted insider intel backing them up as well, and the value before numbers shift. Start winning with them over at sharpplays.com. That's sharpplays.com. And speaking of the World Cup, we already have one result in the bag today. Norway gets it done against the Ivory Coast, but 2 more matches still upon us, one of which I know you are particularly excited for. You are a diehard Mexico fan. You've got the jersey. You're going out to watch the game tonight. Any early thoughts for you against Ecuador?
Yeah, it was supposed to be we're going to go watch the game tonight, but that is
having a tough day.
That has changed, apparently.
I'm still not. I didn't say for sure not. I just said probably not.
not great.
Fortunately, you have so many more friends than me. You're fine.
I don't have so many more, but I have a lot. All right. By the way, I haven't graded the crew, so don't feel left out. Just let me know. I need a head count. Either way, I have washed my hands of this. Much like Pontius Pilate when it came to Jesus Christ's fate. I'm out.
What do you mean?
Look, I think Mexico can win. I think I would be excited, but I don't think I can trust my judgment, is what I'm saying, when it comes to the Mexican side. Because I'll say this. I think what worries me about Mexico for the most part is we'll call it the biggest game that they played against South Korea, they didn't play particularly well. They didn't command possession in that game. Arguably got very lucky in that group play game with the misplay by the goaltender and got that done. In a meaningless game, dominated and played pretty well, obviously, in 1-3-0, but the overlying statistics for Mexico, for the most part, have not been really crazy impressive. And the way that they play, I think, from what I have observed, does kind of not bother me, but I don't know if it sets you up entirely for success. Kind of sitting back, waiting for your opportunities, striking from there. I do wonder if that's going to lead to a situation against your opponent today where maybe you put yourself a little bit behind the eight ball. Ecuador, on the other hand, I think one of the things that you'd be worried about if you're them is or excuse me, if you're Mexico, I should say. Yeah. I was going to say, the expected goal numbers for Ecuador early and throughout this group play has been good, but I think a lot of that derives from one result. So you do wonder what that looks like against a Mexico team that defensively kind of really packs it in from what I can see.
Ecuador is just so hot and cold in the group stage for me, right? Like, you beat Germany, but apparently anyone can after what we saw yesterday. Right. No shade to Paraguay. Shade to Germany, though, because you should be better. You have expectations. But they couldn't score against Curacao. They couldn't score against Ivory Coast. And I know we think that this is an Ivory Coast team that's better than most people expected, but I just haven't seen a ton that I loved about Ecuador. And it's not like they got much rest last night, based on some of the clips. Have you guys seen these clips that are going around about all of the Mexico fans? And listen, they're in their home country. They know where this stuff's going to be. They're honking the horns. Yes. They're honking the horns. They're playing the drums. They're going absolutely insane outside of the Westin where Team Ecuador has been hanging out. I love at the back end of this clip when we get to it. They zoom in on people in the windows of the hotel just looking out. It was bonkers out there. So not only do they have home field advantage, but potentially a rest advantage as well?
You could. You do wonder if maybe did you know this was coming and did they slip out the back and go stay somewhere else? But
look at that.
Yeah. That does suck. But you're just not somebody that likes soccer or even understands what's going on. You just have a dentist convention going up, and you're just like, what is this? Very frustrating. Did you play it?
I didn't play anything in this match. I do have a play in the France-Sweden game that we'll get to a little bit later on. But from a pricing standpoint, I've contemplated some angles on Mexico. They've been bet out from -175 to advance out to -185. So nothing hyper significant. Mexico on the three-way line in the +130, +140 range. Ecuador +285-ish. The draw in the 2-1 range. I contemplated just Ecuador under 1.5 for the goals. It's an alt under, so it's pretty juicy. But there are several different ways I think you can get into this. Ecuador has just had such a problem scoring that I don't know if I have a ton of trust in them being able to do that against your boys.
Yeah.
We shall see. That said, this has been a really busy news cycle in the NBA. When we come back, Travis Demers, radio play-by-play man for the Portland Trail Blazers, is going to help us make sense of the Ja Morant move and more that's going on here on June 30th. Stick around. Money Moves, VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Busy day in the NBA, particularly busy 24 hours for the Portland Trail Blazers as we welcome you back here to Money Moves on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. Stormy Buonantony, Jonathan Von Tobel with you. We saw earlier this morning Robert Williams gets extended, but of course the big news, Ja Morant, the newest Portland Trail Blazer, to help us make sense of it all, break down the trade. Travis Demers joined us, radio play-by-play voice of the Trail Blazers. How are you? How have you taken in all of this news, Travis?
Of all of the shocking things that I've seen in the 20-plus years that I've had around this team, this might be the most shocking. For a number of reasons, right? Think of all the guards the Trailblazers have right now. Yeah. And Ja Morant, for a team that needs shooting, that's not what he does. So it was shocking. I had a couple of people text me like, what do you think of this move? Like, what are you talking about? I had to go look it up and then like triple check to make sure this was true because I was so shocked that is what actually happened.
So you mentioned the glut of guards. A lot of them, too, are like true point guards here that they have on this roster. I can't imagine that they're done, but reports are saying they are. Do you buy that?
Every time in the last couple of years that I thought a move was a precursor to something, I was wrong. So maybe I buy it. But what we've learned in the last year or so is that Scoot Henderson might not be the exact type of player that we thought he was going to be. I think there's a real possibility he can be an off-ball guard. And if they don't make any other moves, and this is the roster they have, Scoot Henderson can be an off-ball guard, and he can also be a backup, and they can all play different positions. But Drew Holiday is not necessarily a natural point guard. Damian Lillard at this stage of his career, lowering that usage and being an off-ball guard, you still have Shaedon Sharpe there too. So you're right. You do have 4 players who are listed primarily as a point guard. But I think really Ja is the only guy who is that true point guard style. I think the other 3 guys in that mix can all play off ball and they can all do it well.
Obviously the on-court fit is a huge question, but for a guy who has also had his career marred in controversy and all of the off-court issues that he's had, what can you share with us about what the Trailblazers room is like and having a personality like his then injected into it?
Last year's Trailblazers team, and I don't say this just to be, cliche, because a lot of people say this about their team and their culture. I've been around the Trailblazers since 2003. That was the best locker room I've ever been around. The players all bought in. They cared. They were all good guys. You never heard a single peep, a single negative anything. And obviously some of that has changed, right? Jeremy Grant's on his way out. Chris Murray on his way out. And those were 2 great guys. Ja Morant has a reputation. I don't know Ja. But this trade doesn't happen without Damian Lillard signing off on it. Right, the reports were that Dame was in the room, or at least a big part of the interview process that brought in Micah Nori as head coach. If they're going to have him involved to that extent, and at this stage of his career and who he is with this organization in this city, it makes a lot of sense. They're not going to make this move without Damian Lillard on board. I would imagine there are some conversations between Dame and Ja, however they get that figured out. But if you have a situation with a guy like Ja Morant who has the reputation that he has, tell me who the grown-up has ever been in the room when Ja Morant has played basketball in the NBA. He's never had one, right? Marcus Smart, that was the grown-up in the room that they were trying to help that team grow up. It obviously didn't work, and no shade to Marcus Smart. That's not who he is. Damian Lillard is that guy. So I think if there is a situation where you have a buy low opportunity for a contract in Jeremy Grant that didn't give you exactly what you needed, and a young player in Chris Murray that had a lot of positional redundancy there. Mm-hmm. You bought low on a guy who has 2 years left, who has all the talent in the world, who hasn't played much in the last 3 years and has had all these off-court issues. Damian Lillard and Drew Holiday are 2 of the best humans in the NBA. If there's anybody that can help get him on the right track and be the grown-ups in the room around him, it's those 2.
Says a lot about Ja that we're talking about him in his, 8th or 9th year, and we're talking about needing veteran presences around him, but I think it says more about him where we're at here. All right, so let's talk about this team then. Assuming that this is the iteration of Portland, what would be your expectations for this team if we're talking about win totals, a group that made it to the postseason, got some action against the San Antonio Spurs, had some good defensive upside, and now with Micah Nori at the helm, what are your expectations for this team if this is indeed the roster they go to war with?
Yeah, and Stormy, you mentioned the report of Rob Williams coming back. That is huge.
Yep.
He was so good for this team last year. And when there were situations that Donovan Clingan couldn't be on the floor, Rob was the guy. He is so versatile defensively, blocking three-point shots, doing everything. Having those 2 guys versatilely, who are terrific defenders at center, anchors that defense. And when you have Ja Morant and Damian Lillard on the floor together, they're both undersized. Neither one of them are great defenders, right? So you look at that backcourt, you've got to have wing defenders. Toumani Camara is a top 5 wing defender in the NBA. We haven't even mentioned Denny Avdia yet. I think he's a little underrated defensively, but I think he's still in that average, defensive area. Drew Holiday, very good defensive guard. Scoot Henderson is an underrated defensive guard. Matisse Thybulle is still a free agent. Don't know what's going to happen with him. I think there's a lot of versatility and a lot of switchability on this team. So you look at the 4 guards and say, how are they going to make this work? And that's not even including Shaedon Sharpe. I don't know what they're going to do, but the talent is certainly there. The issue last year was shooting. It cost them in the playoffs. They blew multiple 15-plus point leads in round 1 against San Antonio because one of the reasons being the shooting was just absolutely dreadful. Dame helps that. I think there needs to be some more shooting added to this team. I think they're in the mix for certainly a top 8 seed. But I think depending on how things break and if the defense goes in the right direction, I think they could be in the mix for a top 6 seed in the Western Conference and in that conversation, because there really isn't that much of a difference in wins and losses between 6 and 9 and 10, maybe 5 or 6 games. And young teams lose some of those games. Last year, there was 8 or 10 games that, because they were so young, it cost them those. Maybe they win 4 or 5 of them this year. Maybe they win 47 games and they're in contention for that 6th spot.
So obviously Portland has made quite a few headlines outside of just the actual basketball stuff over the last few weeks. Let's start with the coaching position first. What do you think Norrie brings to the table that Thiago Splitter did not?
I think there's a different knowledge from both of those guys, right? Thiago Splitter has the knowledge of playing in the NBA. He's big. He's coached overseas. He's coached in the NBA. He's coached bigs. He's won a championship on the floor. So there are things that he does. One of those, though, that doesn't go in his favor is just a lack of experience, right? And he had a really good staff around him. By all accounts, Mike Norrie is a mad scientist, a wizard, a genius in all this stuff. I haven't had a chance to talk to him yet, but everyone that I have talked to about him has just the best things to say. I wonder why it took until he was 52 years old to get a head coaching gig, and I really don't know the answer to that. But by all accounts, he is a really smart guy, and this is a really good hire for the Trailblazers. Obviously, we'll have to see it in action. We'll have to see what his staff looks like once they finally put that together, because the assistants are so important. So I think it's a really good hire. I'm excited to see where it goes. It's just, when you see something being built for a few years and you see the direction and it just starts to get there, and obviously we know what happened with Chauncey Billups, and then Thiago Splitter kind of just took over right where that was. They were going a direction with a staff, and now you have to pivot and either try and go that same direction with a new staff or tweak some things. And I think they're headed in the right direction.
Before I let you go, I know you keep your finger on the pulse of the NBA at large, and we get the news earlier this morning about LeBron James not returning to the Lakers. Any thoughts about all of the conversation about what they're trying to do with him and Golden State before you go?
Man, being in Portland, there's been a lot of battles with the Golden State Warriors, specifically in the postseason. And just when you think they're going to go away, they don't. It's like, will somebody just please put the nail in the coffin on the Golden State Warriors? And I mean that in the most respectful way, because they have always had their way with the Portland Trailblazers. And whether it's going to get Jimmy Butler, Kristaps Porzingis, whoever it is, there's always somebody. Steph Curry is still elite at his age. And look, as much as I am not a fan of LeBron James, mainly because of the bitterness of being on the other side of all of those games, I respect his game, and he is still an elite basketball player. You're going to put that guy in the Warriors? That might not be a championship team, but that's a team I don't want to play.
Yeah, the longevity, too, has been something to behold for sure. Travis, thank you so much for the time. We appreciate it.
Always. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Travis.
Voice of the Portland Trailblazers, Travis Demers, appreciate his time. And that's one thing, too, quickly about LeBron that I know a lot of people have been talking about the age of that roster with all of these guys trying to get him together. LeBron was still awesome this year. Like, it's not like, yes, Father Time catches up with everyone, but he was still an awesome numbers guy and did everything that you needed him to when Luka and other guys weren't on the court.
It's a good note. Father Time does catch up with everybody. I'm going to take that.
Shut up. You're the worst.
I think that I think age does have something to do with it. I think it's just more about availability. I think when they're on the court, they're going to be effective. I don't think there's really any question about that. It's just how often will they be on the court.
Sure. We got to step aside. You hear that music when we come back. We are already wrapping things up. We have best bets for the World Cup and beyond.
Did you have a good show?
It's not over yet.
I'm just saying.
It's
Came in kind of grumpy.
Better now that we've had such great guests.
That's
with
right.
the guy to my left, I'm not so sure. No, we will be
booked 2 of them?
Right back on Money Moves.
watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Breaking news. Ask JVT and you shall receive. From ESPN's Shams Charania a moment ago, your Los Angeles Clippers are nearing a deal to send Kawhi Leonard to the Toronto Raptors. The package would be Brandon Ingram, Grady Dick, 2 first-round picks, a pick swap, and 2 second-rounders, a return to Canada for the Raptors champ.
Just getting a little emotional here. I'm going to take you back many years. I was at a local establishment, Parkway Tavern, with a group of friends, and everybody was watching this stupid Vegas Golden Knights playoff game. And on my phone, I was sitting in the corner of the room. The Los Angeles Clippers in a game 6, I believe it was. No, game 5. We're on the road against the Dallas Mavericks. It was game 6. And I watched Kawhi Leonard drop 45 points to beat them 104-97. And I was like, this is it, buddy. We're so on the map. This is going to be incredible. I'm going to win finals, and it's going to be fantastic. Never did. It was a magical era with Kawhi Leonard, but now it has ended. And as you mentioned, the package, not as sexy on paper. Ingram, Grady Dick, a couple of picks and pick swaps, whatever it is. But I don't want to focus on the Los Angeles Clippers, which are in the midst of a rebuild now at this point. It's time to focus on the Toronto Raptors.
Yes. So
what are the odds?
Can I just say, the odds, we've seen them come down significantly in the last 24 hours, right? Because we were on the air having this discussion yesterday. Toronto to win the NBA Finals was 45-1. They and Golden State were the same number. This morning, 35-1. And then just a moment ago, saw the board flash. They are 25-1. So all of the news that has come out for both Golden State and Toronto now has them both at 25-1 shots.
I think that they are arguably the second best team in the Eastern Conference. I will reiterate again, because I think the Knicks deserve the respect, and they're running pretty much everything back. It's outside of potentially Mitchell Robinson. But I don't understand this stubbornness from the betting market to make the Celtics the favorite that they are, considering, I guess, as currently constructed with Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum to an extent, sure. But I do think that's a flawed team, especially when you talk about their size up front. You look at what these wings look like for the Toronto Raptors, and they all fit together. And, Stormy, they really gave up nothing that is going to cut into the team from last year. Brandon Ingram is a fine player, but you're upgrading with Kawhi Leonard. Grady Dick is a young piece that it was not impactful in a massive way. They're going to be really good, and they're extremely well coached. They were a very good defensive team last year. They should be able to recreate that, if not improve it, when they get to the postseason, especially with Kawhi Leonard out there on the floor. I think the Eastern Conference, and an East that, as we have seen, much like with an NBA champion as well, has kind of cycled through representatives in the NBA Finals. And as we are entering this era of parity where, yes, the Knicks are your defending champions, but they are not a behemoth akin to that of what we thought was the Oklahoma City Thunder, the Boston Celtics at the peak of their powers, those sort of teams. And so while these Knicks are perfectly capable of repeating as an Eastern Conference champion, they are not one that is infallible. And I think a team like Toronto now, and this is the big if you get the Kawhi that played this last year, that can stay available and healthy and ready to roll, I think you're getting a team that is going to be really, really good in the Eastern Conference. And what's the current number again for the Eastern Conference right now?
So for the conference, they go from 18-1 down to 8-1.
Yep.
Right now, it's still off the board on DraftKings. That number at FanDuel right now. So here's the top of the board: Boston plus 250, New York 3-1, Toronto and Cleveland 8-1, Miami 10-1.
Okay. Yeah, and that makes sense, too. I mean, what have we talked about as well with Miami?
Which, Detroit also 10-1 when they were the 1 seed a year ago, too.
Sure.
So think about how all of this is coming together.
But it's also look, these teams are changing and improving.
Yes.
The Toronto Raptors are better than they were last year and arguably better than Detroit. Detroit has kind of been stuck in the mud. I mean, think about what's going on. We didn't even hit this today, but it seems like Detroit is about to lose their second best player in Jalen Duren. Duren, by all accounts, has this chasm between him and the team in terms of what he wants to get paid. So it sounds like he's going to run off to Sacramento to get what he wants. We'll see if that happens. But Detroit, as we had talked about a couple of days ago, was clearing out the books and getting ready to land a big fish. Well, Kawhi just got traded to Toronto. LeBron's going to Golden State. Tyler Hero sounds like he's staying in Milwaukee. And when the musical chairs are all done, maybe Detroit's just stuck sitting there with no chair, and now that's going to be a big problem for them too. So they might be good again. I think they're going to be pushing for 50 wins once again. But you saw a team that was inherently flawed with the way they were constructed, and they needed an additional piece. And then, of course, we get into the other spots. What if Tyrese Halliburton's healthy? They have Ivica Zubac. Like, that team's going to be very good, too. So I think it's priced the way it is. But I think the whole point here is, first off, I think we were right in saying, pump the brakes of the way you moved up Miami. Guys, I know this isn't updated, but can we throw this up? Because it gives us a sense of where we were with some of these odds. The Heat were plus 650 to win the Eastern Conference. It's a ridiculous number considering what could have happened in the Eastern Conference and where some of these teams are. You see where the Raptors were as well to give you a sense of what we're talking about with some of the difference. But I think the Raptors are going to be a very big threat in this Eastern Conference, and we'll see what happens too because you still have Jaylen Brown out there. What if Brown leaves from the Boston Celtics? And what if they only get draft assets back like they keep asking for? Then you're talking about the Raptors being in the mix for being favored in the Eastern Conference.
All right, last few minutes here. Let's get to the best bets. We got to recap before we look to what we are adding today. Yesterday, 1-1. You and I both had Germany laying the goal and a half, and that was a tough look for them, ultimately getting the L yesterday and being knocked out of the tournament.
Can you say the German thing again?
I'd have to go find it. Hold on.
Ich glaube what?
Ich glaube mein Schwein fight.
Okay, you said that pretty well.
Thank you.
I hope you said it
the
properly.
blonde hair.
I thought you said it properly.
Yeah, like lo and behold, I'm cursing and breaking FCC violations.
Yeah.
No, it's just something about a pig. But it is, as far as yesterday goes, I did at least cash both teams to score in the Netherlands-Morocco game, which was the bet of the two that I liked more. So I do feel at least a little bit better about that from a handicapping standpoint. I'm still not far off. Looking ahead to tonight, just one bet. I am rolling with France laying the goal and a half. Hopefully they don't do me dirty like Germany did yesterday in this one. France, obviously a short shot to win it all in this year's World Cup, topped the field in goal differential for the group stage, taking on a Sweden team that was a third place group qualifier. France has the best attack in the sport, if not one of the best. You can call him the best, if not one of the best goal scorers as well in Kylian Mbappe. And then that last game of the group stage, he doesn't have the goals, but you've got another guy in Ousmane Dembele who has a hat trick for you, right? They have such an attacking ability from all areas, so many elite players, so deep. And then Sweden, looking in some of their stuff defensively, really struggled, gave up 7 goals in the 3 group stage games. I find it hard to believe they're going to be able to contain that group. And when you look at some of the numbers just for them to advance, France is an $8 favorite. In terms of the 90-minute line, they're still minus 340. So trying to get creative in how to play on this France team, one that I am already very invested in from a future standpoint as well. My favorite bet pre-flop for the entire tournament was France to at least make the semifinal at plus 130. I have them to win it all. I have Mbappe for Golden Boot, and I'm just going to keep the investment rolling with France today.
All right. I didn't play anything. I do think Mexico can win this, but I will admonish myself from this and say, you know what, I'm not going to do it. Germany minus 1.5 was the loser as well. So a tough one, but we persevere, and we'll see if we can get maybe another winner in the book. But go Mexico. I think that is the side. I will say this, too, as we were talking about a couple of things worth adding. I will note, added Boston to make the playoffs at 6-1, the Red Sox.
Yes.
So that's a future that is worth adding that I have added myself. So I wanted to put that out there, too. I know I did not put it in the rundown. I forgot to do that. But Red Sox to win, or to make the playoffs, yes, at 6-1.
Which I did want to tell you, when we had Adam Burke on in the first hour of the program, when you guys were talking about that 6-1 number, I looked specifically at DraftKings because it was also at the 6-1. I don't know where you played it, but it was also a 6-1. It's 5-1 today.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah.
Okay. I still think that was worth playing. I mean, the American League has not been great, and they've been winning, and obviously these teams ahead of them are no really big threat. So I think the Red Sox are legitimate. And it's funny, I did not know, as Adam had told us, he had told the guys on a numbers game yesterday that the Red Sox were one of his playoff teams. Mm-hmm. So it all depends to me. I'm hoping that they don't go the route of selling, because that would be pretty tough, much like we're selling the NFL guide to you right now. Go to vsin.com/subscribe.
That's a good note, too, though, with Adam joining the show. Remember, you can download Money Moves wherever you get your podcasts. If you want to listen on your own time, talk through not only the baseball best bets today, but a lot of those big picture futures angles. While you're there, you get Money Moves. You also get Pod of the Futures. Is that recording today, or is that coming out today?
That is out today. We recorded yesterday.
Out today. So make sure you check that out, breaking down. What else do you have in addition to baseball? What are you guys talking?
Let's see. We had a lot on the American League, as we had discussed yesterday. Some futures there, too. Some of the ramifications. I made the case for one NBA future in the Western Conference to make, and we talked futures when it came to the FIFA World Cup.
Beautiful. We obviously tomorrow.
And we bonded, and we were buddies, because that's what happens.
You guys do that all the time.
Yeah.
When we were walking out of the studio yesterday, nice and yawn. He and I have something in common. But when you guys were walking out on the way out, I thought you guys were going to break up there for a second.
Oh, because Mitch, I don't need to give details, but I'm going through something personal, as has been the case. And Mitch promised me, whatever you need, buddy, I'm there for you. Let's grab a drink whenever you want. I have the text message to prove it. Ask me if that drink has happened yet, despite me asking him multiple times. It is not.
Has that drink happened?
No, it is not.
See,
No,
I was at least gonna give you that. That's a wrap for us today, though. Thanks everybody for hanging out as usual. Again, like I said, if you missed any of the show, you want to catch back up, Money Moves in podcast form, wherever you get your podcasts. We'll be back tomorrow, same time, same place. Excited to dive into the USA match coming up tomorrow. I know we did it a good bit yesterday with Eric Wendala. We'll play some more of that tomorrow. But have a great day, everybody. Good luck with your bets and go France. Is there something like that?